Good morning, and welcome to the Alameda Connection on KCSM HD2. I'm your host, Scott Piehler. With its flat topography and fantastic weather, Alameda has always been a great city for walking and cycling, and it's getting even better. With features like dedicated bike lanes, pedestrian-friendly on-demand flashing crosswalks, and easy access to the AC transit system, it's not too hard to leave your car behind here in Alameda. Part of the reason for that, the efforts of Bike Walk Alameda. Since 1999, they've been advocating to make the island city a progressively safer place to walk and ride. My guest today is Denyse Trepanier, chair of the board of Bike Walk Alameda. We talk about the improvements that have been made, the improvements that are coming, and what the economic benefits are for a city that embraces pedestrian and bicycle traffic. That's Denyse Trepanier of Bike Walk Alameda this morning on the Alameda Connection. Good morning, Denyse, and welcome to the Alameda Connection.
Good morning, Scott. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Let's start with a very basic introduction, and we'll come back to a little more of the nuts and bolts. What exactly is Bike Walk Alameda?
I like to think of it as our local safe streets advocacy group.
Okay.
We're basically an advocacy group that works with the city, works with our electeds to try and make sure that it is a safe and comfortable place for people to get around outside of a car. So whether they're on bikes or walking, taking transit, although we don't officially have transit in our name, just making sure that there's a way for people to get around who don't have the luxury or convenience of a personal automobile.
Background, misplaced Canadian.
Yes, yes. I was born and had my childhood in Canada, Eastern Canada, and my parents moved down to the States. My dad was transferred with IBM down to Boston when I was about 13, I think it was.
Okay.
So eventually I lived up and down the East Coast from Boston to Miami, and eventually made my way out here about 26 years ago.
Okay.
And I've been in California ever since.
Your education, University of Florida, MBA in computer science, and more or less a career in tech. What drew you to tech?
Well, my undergraduate was in accounting, and I did that for a year, and I hated it. I decided to go back to school, get an MBA in computer science, and I've kind of been in it ever since.
What eventually drew you to the Bay Area and kept you here?
What drew me here was a gentleman I was dating at the time. The relationship didn't work out, but I was so glad I got out here too. So I just stayed. I fell in love with it out here, as most people do. The weather, the people, just the creative spirit out here. And I think there's a lot of people doing things that aren't as wedded to the status quo as you might find on the East Coast. And so I was attracted to that.
What started you in on your love of cycling?
My love of cycling started because when I first moved out here, I was riding a 600cc motorcycle.
Okay. I have to ask, as a former motorcyclist, what were you riding?
It was a Seika 2. On the East Coast, I was living somewhere fairly flat, and I moved to the city. I moved to San Francisco, and trying to wield that bike around San Francisco on the hills of San Francisco was a little much. I'm not a very large person, and it was difficult, but I did understand the convenience of getting around on two wheels versus four.
Right.
So I wanted to stay on two wheels, so I started bicycling instead of motorcycling, and I started to get around. I was working downtown, living in the Castro. I lived in Bernal Heights for a while, so it was pretty easy to get around by bicycle. And eventually,
Despite the hills? I mean, that's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it was good exercise.
Okay.
It was good exercise. Eventually, I started volunteering with the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition. Just as a volunteer, I was parking bikes at the Giants game.
Oh, fun.
That was really, really fun, and just got more and more involved in that. And then eventually I met my husband, and he was living in Alameda at the time. Just came out here and continued in the advocacy role. And eventually the president of Bike Walk Alameda at the time left. They got a job at the city, so they could no longer do advocacy work. So I was on the board at the time, and I stepped up into the board presidency role.
So 2014 is when you moved to Alameda. What prompted that move?
Mostly I just was kind of done with the city, to be honest with you. I feel like there was a huge premium in living in the city, like financial premium to pay to live there. And I was just at the stage of my life where I wasn't taking advantage of all of the cultural and nightlife and everything that I was paying for as part of that premium. So I was looking at Rockridge, I was looking at Portland, I was looking at a bunch of different places. My husband showed me Alameda. We were dating at the time.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is it. And it was so flat after riding those hills for all those years. I was like, oh, yeah, this is it.
I have to ask because I cracked up Your retirement note on LinkedIn, this is sort of a two-part thing, says, retired from ruining workplaces with my liberal feminine vices. On Threads, you actually repeated that and tagged and thanked the New York Times. What's the story?
There was an opinion writer in the New York Times who wrote an op-ed. Basically, the title of it was, "Are Women Ruining the Workplace with Their Feminine Vices?" It was just like 2 years ago that somebody said this. And so I was already retired at the time, so I didn't really care what was on my LinkedIn anymore. So I was like, have some fun with it. So I put that up there.
That is fantastic. Let's go into a little bit of the history of Bike Walk Alameda. They founded in 1999.
There was a woman named Lucy Jiggly who started Bike Walk Alameda in 1999, and she had also come over from the city and saw that Alameda would be probably one of the best places in the country that could be set up for cycling. And so she started it, her and her husband, Dan, raising a family here. She started it. If I recall correctly, one of the main projects that got her involved in pursuing this and setting up Bike Walk Alameda was to get the Cross Alameda Trail conceived of and built.
How close are we to completion now? It's that
very close. The last section is what's happening over on Tilden and Broadway now. That's the last section. So we're super, super close. Everything else has been done. It's been built in segments over the years.
Explain the relationship of Bike Walk Alameda and Bike East Bay.
Until recently, we were completely separate organizations. Bike East Bay is an umbrella organization, if you will, that basically does advocacy and education for all of Contra Costa and Alameda counties. As part of that role, they also act, if you want them to, as financial sponsors for local organizations who are doing this sort of feet on the ground, wheels on the path. So they're financially sponsoring us now. So we're no longer our own individual 501c3 as a separate entity. We're financially sponsored by them. I mean, we're still doing the work locally. So it's similar to what Walk Oakland, Bike Oakland does, or Berkeley, Albany Strollers and Rollers. All of these organizations are kind of under the umbrella of Bike East Bay.
2016, you joined the board of BWA. Why?
Because I moved here and I wanted to stay involved in advocacy. I was like Lucy, I saw Alameda as, wow, I don't think there's another city in all of the U.S. that has the potential that Alameda does between our topography, our weather, our lack of interstates. Those three things just combined make Alameda the ideal place to get around outside of a car. So I wanted to get involved in that. Also, at the time, I was living on Central. I was really interested in some of the conversations that were just starting to happen about a cycle track along Central Avenue. It's a long time ago. And so I went to an initial community meeting, and lo and behold, here I am. I think somebody heard me speaking at that community meeting and were like, hey, come over here.
What was the lag between joining the board and becoming chair of the board?
Probably about 5 years, 5 or 6 years. There were a couple of board presidents in between. Lucy was the board president for probably the first 20 years of the organization, and then we've had a couple since then.
There's a difference between being a board member and being a board chair. What finally cemented it for you that you could say, yeah, I'll take this on?
It's a great question. Mostly because we needed somebody. As I mentioned, our two prior board chairs, one had passed away while she was in the role. And so then another person stepped up and did it. But then when he got a job with the city, he had to stop. And they're kind of like, okay, we need somebody. And all of the other board members took one step back. And I was kind of left there. I don't think anybody really aspires to this, but it's important work. Somebody has to pick it up and move it forward.
Basic mission and driving forces behind why BWA exists and continues to exist.
There's a lot of competing interests. Like our city staff is amazing, but there's a lot of competing interests for their attention for different projects and funding. And you almost need an external organization to keep those resources focused on making Alameda a safe place to get around outside of a car, because it's very easy to listen to people complain about a road diet or maybe losing some parking spaces. So there needs to be an organization there that's constantly advocating for the upside of doing some of those very difficult things. And there are huge upsides to that. That's a big part of our mission, is just making sure that when projects come up or when grants are available, that we're considering those needs and not just, the needs of often the loudest constituents.
What do you think is BWA's greatest achievement to date?
It's changing some of the hearts and minds of local people around what Alameda has the potential to become. We just try and keep that potential top of mind.
When you're talking to people in this role, what do you come up when they ask, well, what are the economic benefits of greater pedestrian and cyclist access?
There have been dozens of studies done at this point about where bicycling facilities have been added to, say, business districts or, say, being built out on the base like they are now. The cities can look at the tax revenue and see that business increases when bicycling facilities or better pedestrian facilities are put in. Somebody did a recent survey of a bunch of local business corridors where facilities were put in. And I think on average, business went up by like 17%.
Wow.
Initially, a lot of local businesses will be very hesitant to embrace that because they're very concerned that their customers won't have places to park or won't be able to get to their businesses anymore, won't be able to take goods and services from there and get them home. And so you want to be very compassionate with that, but the data does show otherwise. The data shows that generally store owners will assume that a much higher percentage of their customers arrive by car than actually do. And they've done a lot of these pre and post surveys. So there's real science behind it and real data behind it that says biking is really good for business.
What programs are available educationally? Because I see BWA's name on things like, learning to ride, even as adult. What's the offerings?
Actually, Bike East Bay manages most of the educational offering. There's another organization that advocates at the national level called the League of American Cyclists, and they do training and certification for instructors to teach people. Bike East Bay is a member organization of the League, and they have a bunch of League certified instructors, and they do everything from urban cycling 101 and 102. 101 is classroom and 102 is on the road.
Okay.
They do learn to ride as an adult. They do lots of kids learn to ride. They are primarily the organization responsible for a lot of the education side of it. A lot of the education is just making people see what is possible. If you haven't ridden a bike since you were a kid, it can be a little overwhelming and daunting to say, oh, how can I get rid of my car and, now commute to work? But it doesn't have to be like an all or nothing thing. If you just replace a few trips a week, the more you do it, the more confident you become. I would advise people to just maybe think about replacing 1 or 2 trips a week and not think of it as an all or nothing. I drive, my husband and I both have cars. Until recently, we had 3 cars. It's a very small minority of people who commute exclusively by bicycle. What we're looking is to move the needle on fewer car trips. And it doesn't even have to be by bicycle. It can be getting more familiar with transit. In Alameda, we have such high walkability scores. There really is a lot of stuff that's close to people where they could replace a lot of their car trips and errands with walking.
If you're unaware, folks, a 4-pack of pints from one of our breweries fits in your average trunk bag of a bicycle.
Yes.
It's a very easy get.
Yes.
I want to get a little serious for a moment. I had Chief Joshi from the APD on a couple of weeks ago. We had a conversation about e-bikes. There's a lot of stuff in the news, and he brought up the point that he had to pull over a 14-year-old kid on Bay Farm who was, I think the technical term is being an idiot on the e-bike. We have the Amelia Stafford case in Marin, the girl who had the horrific skull injury. One of the true stats is that the Minette Transportation Institute, 17% of e-bike riders in accidents are going to the hospital, compared to 12% of manual bike riders. Let's talk for a minute to parents and kids, because part of me sees what's going on with my own eyes, kids weaving in and out of traffic. A lot of these things are fairly high-powered. What do you say to parents and kids who have said, ooh, gee whiz, an e-bike?
First of all, we need to get more clarity and language around it, because a lot of where you see kids and adults out there being an idiot, they're actually not on e-bikes, they're on e-motos.
Right.
And those are illegal. I think the first thing we need to do is get parents educated on what is legal and what is illegal.
Okay.
There are class 1, class 2, class 3 e-bikes. There are different rules and speed limiters and such that defines each of those. But anything that goes over 28 miles an hour without pedaling is illegal. So that would be the first thing. The city has information on its page. We have information at bikewalkalameda.org. Bike East Bay has it. So the first thing we need to do is get clarity and educate parents on not everything that you can buy online or even at some of our local shops, is legal. And so understand what your kid is capable of and don't buy illegal things for your children.
Right. And I think another part of the problem is that a lot of these things which start out as legal, just like you can jailbreak a phone,
Exactly.
you can get around an electronic control.
Exactly. Be responsible. Make sure if you bought one that could be jailbroken, make sure your kid hasn't done that. But if you think your kid might be pressured to do such a thing, don't buy one that can be jailbroken. And stick with class 1 and class 2. Your kid probably getting to school doesn't need a class 3 e-bike. Check what's legal. Unfortunately, as of this recording, we do not have comprehensive state level regulation around e-bikes yet, other than those classification definitions. There is some legislation working its way through right now. 2 very bad bills died in appropriations a couple weeks ago, thank goodness, but there is still one that Bike Walk Alameda is supporting, which is responsible definitions and accountability for who is responsible if somebody gets hurt by an illegal bicycle. Amazon, I think, just recently announced that they were going to stop selling illegal ones in California due to state level action. I'll put a plug in for The Morning Bun. It's a blog that one of our transportation commissioners, Drew Dara Abrams, right? He just wrote one a couple of days ago about e-bikes and illegal scooters. And so there's resources in there. Right now, because we don't have state level action right now, each of the cities are considering tackling this on their own, which would be very unfortunate because nobody just stays in Alameda or stays in Berkeley or stays in Emeryville. We really need this managed at the state level. So hopefully the state will be taking actions shortly, which will give comprehensive guidance to all of the towns that are struggling with this right now.
If you're doing 20 to 25 on a standard bicycle, you're working. That requires a certain degree of effort. And I know on my rides, I'm rarely above 15, 17.
Yeah, especially in Alameda where there's no hills. Like you're not flying down a hill unless you have a really good tailwind out. You're coming back from the base, maybe you can maybe hit that. But
so the idea of the speeds that are achievable with no effort, and then this came to me from my motorcycling days. And this just a note to parents as you think about what your kids are doing. This kept me in a helmet for my entire cycling career, both motorized and not, which is the human brain has the consistency of half-set scrambled eggs. You might want to protect that.
There's more research being done into the long-term effects of even little bumps, especially for children. Few of those, even if they seem fine in their early years, you don't want that as you get older. So yeah, protect your noggin. It's really important.
I'm a cyclist, I'm a motorist, you're a cyclist, you're a motorist, and we see stupidity on both sides. Motorists need to wake up, put down the phone, pay attention to what's going on. I also see cyclists on their phones, no hands on the handlebars, and then dismissing the rules of the road as they see fit. I'm a vehicle, I'm not a vehicle, I'm a vehicle, I'm not a vehicle. If you could sort of say one comment to both sides, one thing to a motorist, one thing to a cyclist to say, can't we all just get along? What would the comment be to the motorist and what would the comment be to the cyclist?
The comment to the cyclist would be predictable. Just be predictable. I'm not necessarily going to tell an adult cyclist not to do a slow roll through a stop sign. I mean, there are physics and momentum, and it's a lot of extra work, and the Idaho stop should have been passed in California a long time ago. But be responsible, be respectful, be predictable. Don't be weaving in and out. Don't be in the bike lane when it's convenient for you and then hop up on the sidewalk because there's a red light. And then, be predictable. That would be my message to cyclists. To motorists, it would be probably what you said. Put down the phone, pay attention. Realize that people outside of an automobile, whether it's cyclists or pedestrians, we're human beings too. We're just trying to get from point A to point B like you are in your car. Try not to other us so much. Probably earlier in the day, we were in a car as well. We're parents, we're children. Just think of us as human beings and don't try and other us so much. We're not the bad guys.
What's the biggest bike safety tip that beginning cyclists miss?
I would go back to the predictability and situational awareness.
Okay.
It can be difficult and scary sometimes when the bike lane ends or the bike path lane ends to get out there and take the lane and be predictable and be visible because you may be slowing somebody down. It is really important for cyclists to be out there, be visible, be predictable. And that can be really scary at first. And have situational awareness. I think you probably know from riding a motorcycle and riding a bicycle, there's a level of visibility that you have or concentration that you have when you're out there riding. You just see a lot more. There's no blind spots. So you see a lot more. And it's really important to be out there and be visible to the cars because they have much more limited visibility and they have a lot more distractions.
Is there a cyclist stereotype that sometimes pinches you a little bit, hits too close to home? And I use as an example, I'm also a comic book geek and comic book guy on The Simpsons. I go, oh, okay, yeah, ouch, well done. The one I always think of with cycling is Jeff the cyclist from Pearls Before Swine. And I look at Jeff and I go, okay, Stefan, you've got a point. Is there some sort of stereotype that you go, okay, guilty, I'll try to be better?
Yes, yes. I would say there's an acronym called MAMMLs. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No.
Middle-aged males in Lycra.
Oh, very good.
And one of the things that frustrates me a little bit is they're very confident in the road, right? And they have been out there for the last 20, 30, 40 years riding. A lot of times they will actually be opposed to a lot of the infrastructure or projects that we're working on because they don't want to be stuck in a cycle track or they don't want to have to be limited to a bike path. They're confident in the road. And so I have to sort of explain to these people that these projects are not for them. If they're already comfortable in the road, that's not who we're building this infrastructure for. We're building it for the 8-year-old kid so his mom doesn't have to give up every morning dropping him off at school every day. That's who we're building this for. Or the person who's aged out of driving and wants to still be mobile and active in their community. So it's a little frustrating because the MAMMLs, yeah, I would say that would be the stereotype.
I like it. There was a large push a few months ago at the early hearings about the new aquatic center around Gene Sweeney to eliminate parking spaces in favor of greater cycling use. How do you respond to someone who says, that's well and good. I've got 4 kids and their assorted paraphernalia. I got to park.
If you have to park, there will still be parking. I think what we have to stop doing is assuming that everybody has to park. Some of those early plans and designs, the assumption was that almost everybody who was showing up there was going to be driving and needed a free place to park. And that would have meant destroying one of the most beautiful open spaces, in my opinion, because it's in my backyard, that we have. We don't believe everybody can bike to the aquatic center. We know there's going to be swim meets there. There's going to be school buses there.
Physical therapy, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. If we're not making the assumption that everybody can ride a bike, we would like other people to think about the possibility that not everybody has to drive. And there's a happy median. And we should do a real transportation study and see how people are going to get to this. We built a world-class bicycling facility right where that aquatic center is going to be. Plus, there's high traffic bus lines right there on Webster and Wilmot-Chan. So it's pretty easy for people to get there. There's no reason 4 kids can't ride a bike.
So a middle ground. A
middle ground. Yes, exactly.
How dare you in modern America suggest looking for a middle ground? What is your preferred bicycle?
Not one that I ride very much around Alameda. So people always ask me, well, what type of biking do you do? I don't really do road biking and I don't do mountain biking, which are probably the 2 most common forms of bicycling. I ride primarily for transportation, but my husband and I also do a lot of bicycle travel. So we load up our bikes with all our camping gear and we go off right from our front door and we'll do multi-day trips of camping around the bay. So I have what's referred to as a touring bike, which is specifically built to carry a lot of weight, go long distance, be comfortable. And that is my preferred bicycle. But I just don't ride it much locally around. My bike for local transportation is probably a 1990s old mountain bike that I don't mind locking up.
I have a Novara, which REI used to have as their house brand. And the last time I brought it into an REI, I had a 20-something look at me. Oh, who sold this? This was yours.
Wow.
They didn't even recognize it. 2-part question. What's your favorite place to ride in Alameda? And what's your favorite place to ride anywhere?
My favorite place to ride in Alameda, again, I'm very biased because it's right out my back door. I will get on the Cross Alameda Trail at Gene Sweeney Park and head out all the way out to the base. My husband and I refer to the very far, far fence before you can't go any further onto the runways. We call that the trash fence. Because we're both old burners, and that was the line for where you could go. At Burning Man out on the playa, there was a trash fence. So we refer to that. We like to go out there. It's just beautiful. There's beautiful views of the city. There's been a lot of performance art out there with Stadium, doing a lot of stuff out there. It's just really fun to go out there, and it's just beautiful. Alameda is so beautiful. He likes to do the circle on Bay Farm. I find the paths a little too bumpy right now, although they're getting better. But yeah, I'd say the Cross Alameda Trail is my favorite right now, just because it's outside my back door.
Very good. And what about just anywhere else beyond Alameda?
Oh, anywhere else. When we do some mountain biking, yeah, it's up in Redwood, Sequoia, parks up there. I like to be very car-free. I personally don't like sharing the roads with cars.
Right.
Another place we've done recently is just getting on the Bay Bridge bike path and going to Treasure Island. They built the new park out on Treasure Island, and that's really fun. We just packed up a picnic a couple of days ago. I think it was last Sunday, and rode out there and had a picnic and rode home. It was really nice.
What is your ideal riding weather?
Probably today.
Kind of sunny, mid-60s?
Yep. I don't like getting too hot. I'm an older lady, so I have to be careful about how hot I let myself get. So yeah, I like the cooler weather. So yeah, today would be a perfect day.
Your BWA profile says you're dreaming of a cross-country bike trip. Now, I had to look that up and do some research and say that's about a 2 to 3 month endeavor typically. What would your preferred path be? And I suppose I should ask, one way or both ways?
Probably one way.
Okay.
That's an old profile because that's probably not my ideal bike trip anymore.
Okay.
Recently, we've gotten more into exploring rails to trails because, again, I like to be car-free. So my ideal bike trip right now is there's a path that's totally car-free that runs from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C.
Ooh.
It's the C&O Canal and the Cumberland Gap were some old rail lines that ran there, and they've been converted into paths. And all these little towns have popped up, and it's a really popular cycling facility. I've had a lot of friends who do it. It takes about a week each way. I'd like to do that back and forth. That would be my ideal bike trip.
What's a current or upcoming project in Alameda that BWA has really kind of got their eyes on right now?
You know, there's so much that is in construction right now, and I know it's really frustrating to people. There's what's going on at Broadway. There's what's going on at Central. The next big project, I think, is going to be the neighborhood greenways. We've done really well. Alameda as a city, at least on the island, has done really well with our east-west connections. We have not done very well with our north-south connections, and we need much better connections north-south. So I would say the plan that was approved in the active transportation plan 5 or 6 years ago, bringing that to fruition, I think with the neighborhood greenways, I think is going to be a real game changer.
Okay, here's the question that every guest on the show gets. You have company coming in from out of town. You have to take them to 3 meals in Alameda. It can be breakfast, lunch, dinner, 3 dinners, bites and notches. Where are you going?
The first would be East End Pizza. Dollar oysters on a weeknight between 5 and 6.
Very good.
Followed by their pizza, which I think is some of the best pizza I've ever had. I love that place.
Okay.
So that would be number 1. That's our go-to restaurant. Number 2 would probably be Scolari's Delivered to Lucky 13.
Okay, very good. A classic.
Yeah, I've heard other people give that one on your show, but it's, we'll be shooting pool over there, and we love that.
I love it.
And number 3 is probably a new find for us, Saltbreaker out on the base.
Oh, yeah, Saltbreaker's amazing. We've had Adam in on the show, and it's quite a story. Have you been to the Yard yet?
No, haven't been to the Yard.
A little outdoor place,
Yeah,
which
I've
is a
seen
little
it.
more, as Adam calls it, Saltbreaker and flip-flops.
Okay. Okay.
The breakfast sandwich is on point, I will say that.
Okay. Oh, we love a good breakfast sandwich.
And then Adam would hate me if I say that, but then go around the corner to Blue Drip for coffee.
Okay.
That's a good morning.
All right. Okay. Definitely check that out.
Website, socials, how people can keep up with what's going on with Bike Walk.
bikewalkalameda.org. Everything is posted there. We also have a monthly newsletter that we put out that you can go to our website and sign up for. That's a good one. Facebook, we have a group and a page.
Okay.
People should be mindful of joining the group because our page isn't very active. So join the group. I'm the admin. I'll let you in. Do answer our question, though, which is, what is one thing you would like to see done to make Alameda a better place to bike and walk? It's an active group.
Sounds good. Denyse Trepanier, the chair of the board of Bike Walk Alameda. Thanks for spending time with us on the Alameda Connection.
Thank you, Scott. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks again to Denyse Trepanier of Bike Walk Alameda for spending time with us this morning here on the Alameda Connection. To keep up with what's going on with Bike Walk, head to their website, which is bikewalkalameda.org. And, as Denyse mentioned, they have 2 presences on Facebook. There is a Bike Walk Alameda page and a Bike Walk Alameda group. The easiest way to find the group is to first head to the page and then follow the link. Coming up next Sunday on the Alameda Connection, my guest will be Patrick Russi, Recreation Manager of the Alameda Recreation and Parks Department. Patrick has spent his entire career with ARPD, which, if you are unaware, is the third oldest park system in all of California. And also, we'll find out why it's recreation and parks and not parks and recreation. That's next week on the Alameda Connection. Thanks to the California Historical Radio Society for providing this week's location for our sit-down with Denyse Trepanier. Don't forget, head to bayarearadio.org and you can cast your vote for the Audiocaster of the Year Award. You can vote as often as you like. Thanks as always to guitarist Bill Hart for our theme music. The song is Beachside Isle. The album is Watch the Sky. I'm Scott Piehler. Catch you next Sunday morning, 8 a.m., the Alameda Connection on KCSM HD2.